Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Steve Goldman. I'm the director of the Center for Free Enterprise, and I want to thank everybody for coming today. I'm really excited. We've got a lot of really great events, including today's, and besides today's speaker, we have two other really big events, and the next one will be on October 2nd. We're bringing in Rob Capello, and he's a composer, and he makes a really interesting take on songs, and he's going to take Eine kleine Nachtmusik, it's a quintet piece, and he's going to decompose it and try to help us understand the importance of listening in business and understanding what you hear by the way you listen to music and understand what you hear there. So it ought to be real exciting. That's going to be over in Comstock Hall, over in the music school. So I hope everybody can go. It's going to be a really exciting event. And it's something we've never tried before, but I think it's going to be really cool. And then on November 4th, which is a Monday, in this auditorium, we're going to bring in Bob Lawson and Ben Powell, and they're going to discuss their book, Socialism Sucks, Two Economists Drink Their Way Through the Unfree World. And it's actually a really interesting book because it's like Anthony Bourdain and Milton Friedman going on tour together, and they talk about these socialist countries and what you can find there and what you can eat there and what you can drink there compared to countries right next door that aren't socialist. And so I think it'd be a really interesting talk. And so a little house cleaning, and then I'm going to introduce my dean, who's going to introduce the speaker. So first, if you're undecided on your major, you need to choose economics. So this is what you hear every time you come. So you should, and you can get a BA, which means you can do the arts and sciences requirements. And we used to have a long laundry list of stuff you had to take to get the econ major, and that laundry list is pretty much gone now. So it's much easier to get the major. You still got to do the economics. Economics is not like a breeze thing, but it's worthwhile. You'll get a really good job. Or you can do the BS and do the business curriculum, which is really great because it's all here in the business school, and you'll learn a lot about business and also get the economics degree. And you should also consider minoring in entrepreneurship, and you can do that no matter what your major is, no matter what school you're in, and take the entrepreneurship classes. It'd be really worthwhile. If you're supposed to receive extra credit, you've got some surveys in front of you. In fact, if you're not getting extra credit, you have surveys in front of you. Please fill them out either way, but if you're getting extra credit, make sure you put your name on there and the classes which you're supposed to get the extra credit for, otherwise you won't get it. And finally, at the end of Magatte's talk, she will take questions from the audience. Let's allow students to ask questions first. And remember, these are questions which are very short. We don't want to hear a 5-minute thing about what you're doing and then get to a question. Let's just get to the question, okay? And so hopefully you guys will enjoy this. Magatte's got a lot of interesting things to tell us, and our dean, Todd Meradian, is going to introduce her. So here's Todd.
Thank you, Steve. What do I have to do to get extra credit? Raise. This is an important center and an important speaker series in the college. It provides us with diverse voices and perspectives, and as you heard from the speakers that we have lined up, including today, really robust conversations that stimulate thought and critical thinking. So we appreciate the center, and I would endorse Steve's brief comment that the economics degree and the entrepreneurship minor are incredible alternatives for people who want broad exposure, including in the liberal arts, and an opportunity to learn about how innovation changes our lives through entrepreneurship and free enterprise. So I am going to read a little bit. I never do that in front of a crowd, but I want to make sure I'm accurate in introducing our speaker. So it says I should first say I'm the dean of the college, and I am happy to be here, and I really am. Since its founding 4 years ago, the Center for Free Enterprise has offered programming, research, and teaching related to how enterprise and entrepreneurship makes lives better. The center has recently been charged with bringing even more focus to the entrepreneurship part of the mission. I cannot think of a better kickoff speaker to talk about making lives better through entrepreneurship. Magatte Wade is passionate about creating jobs and prosperity in Africa through entrepreneurship, and wielding the power of brands and business to create social and cultural change here in the U.S. She was born in Senegal, educated in France, and launched her entrepreneurial career in San Francisco. Magatte's current line of skincare products, Skin is Skin, is manufactured in Senegal and is dedicated to undoing the cultural habit of discrimination. It is my pleasure to welcome Magatte Wade.
Thank you so much, Dean, and thanks to all of you for being here this afternoon. I know that right around 5 we might lose a few of you because I know you have another class coming, so I want to thank you already for being here. So oftentimes when I give this talk, and by the way, it's never really the same talk because I adjust my talks based on the audience I have in front of me. People find that strange, but that's just how I roll. But oftentimes when people see this title of the morality or the moral impact of entrepreneurship, they're like, what the heck is she going to talk about? Some people even think I'm going to come and trash business. Oh, they wouldn't be further from the truth. So I will tell you why, for me, there is a moral part to entrepreneurship. You see, I am from Senegal, the west coast of Africa. Anyone here who has ever gone to Senegal or to the west coast of the continent? Where are you from?
Senegal.
No, very good. Which part of Senegal?
Dakar.
Dakar. Which part of Dakar?
Yoff.
Yoff, okay. I used to live in Yoff village. Now I live in Magatte. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in any case, you see, for me, and what's your name?
Sada.
Sada? Okay. So let me share stories here with you. Why my reason being here is very, very personal. You know, I was born in Senegal, like I said, and my family moved me to Germany very early on. So I started my education in Germany, and then we moved to France. And so I do remember that as soon as I landed foot in Germany, so right around age 7, one question popped in my head, and that question never left me. And that question was, why are some countries poor and some other countries are rich? Because when I left my country, I left a place where back then, you know, it was not so easy to be in a house where you have running water. And oftentimes we had power outages. And you know that we still have power outages. Sometimes they last 12 hours, 24 hours. And paved roads everywhere? No, we don't necessarily, to this day, even have that. And so I left my country. I've never seen another place before, and I land in Germany in the middle of the winter, and I'm seeing all this stuff around me. These big, tall buildings, paved roads everywhere. Turn the faucet, the water comes in, as hot, as cold as you want it. Electricity outages, what does that mean? They don't know that phenomenon there unless you're dealing with some extreme, you know, extreme climate sometimes. So this question popped in my head. I was 7 years old, and the whole thing, nothing made sense. And that question was, why back home do I have what we have, and why here do they have what they have? It's a question that never left me. And only 12, 15 years ago, I finally found the answer to my question. It was a long journey, so what happened? Along the journey, many people came up with many different reasons as to why countries like mine supposedly were poor. I've heard it all. It went from, oh, you guys are simply idiots. The IQ theory. It's there, ladies and gentlemen, and it's very real. People, as a matter of fact, a year ago, I was at a conference where there was a panel of 4 gentlemen talking very seriously about the fact that they don't think that countries full of black and brown people will ever make it in society, because guess what? They are effed up. There is something intrinsically wrong with us. The IQ theory. I've heard other people say, oh, it's just because you guys are malnourished. You don't have access to proper nutrients. It is true that the brain needs some type of nutrient, but this idea that just because we're malnourished, we're never going to get anywhere, I didn't buy into that either. Because by the way, how many people do you know that have lots of food in their bellies and are still not doing much? And then the other thing is, some people think, oh, they don't have access to clean water. Of course, clean water is important, for health reasons primarily. But yeah, you can be all hydrated all you want, and then still what? What? You still are living in poverty. So I've heard it all the way to people even saying, if only we give these people shoes, it's going to be all right. Tom shoes. I'm sure some of you have some on your feet. I won't get on your case at this point. I will just imagine that you didn't know. But by the time I'm done, if you're still wearing Tom's shoes, then we will have a problem. So you see how I've heard it all. I've heard it all. But you know why none of this made sense? None of these so-called reasons or diagnoses as to why countries like mine were poor, why some other Western countries were rich, made no sense. I will tell you why. Because most of these things made it about the person himself or herself. But if it was about this person being so wrong, then why is it that when my parents, the very same people, once they leave my country and they go to another one, voila, the magic happens for them as well. Why is it then that when a person leaves Mexico and comes to the US, the same work that this person does, the same thing, as soon as they cross the border, they go from here to here, the value of their work is multiplied by how much? Can someone tell me? 10 times. You are the same person doing the same job, but you cross this one country, all of a sudden your work is worth 10 times more. So you see why for me, I cannot accept this idea that it probably has to do with these people, they're just worthless or who knows what else. Something else must have been at play. And I started to discover what that was. And it started for me when I started my first company. And before I take you there, I want to tell you one more thing. You know, Sada could probably tell you about this, I don't know for him, but for me, I grew up with stories where almost every other week or month, you hear about the story of a boat that has tipped somewhere on the Mediterranean. You hear those. What is going on? What is going on is that for as long as I can remember, on a regular basis, from back home, we have young people, usually they're young people, full of hope and full of want and desire to work and to be relevant in this world. They feel that they cannot manifest their greatest potential back home. So what do? They put themselves into little fishermen's boats, try to cross the ocean to make it to Europe. Their first port of entry is Europe, usually Spain, and they're trying to get there to find a job. Unfortunately, more often than not, the boat does not make it. It tips over somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean or the Mediterranean when they get closer to the coast of Europe. So what this means is by now, I have tens of thousands of some of my probably most entrepreneurial young people, because usually those are the ones in these boats. They're entrepreneurial in the first place. That's why they're saying, it's not working out here for me, I'm going to go somewhere else. They are laying right now at the bottom of the ocean, serving as fish food. I know it's a very gruesome image, but it's the reality. So I want you to sit with that for a second. And that is happening. Why? Because they are on their way to look for work. And then some people might say, why are they not looking for work in their country? It's because as it stands, we don't have enough jobs right now for everybody. So why are we in this situation? I started finding out. Once I started my first business, I was based in San Francisco. I guess I'm still in San Francisco, but along the road, I traveled different places in the US. As of now, I spend half my time in the US and the other half in Africa and in Senegal. And so, you know, one thing I found as I had to build these businesses, I'm building my third one right now, each time there is a sister company in Senegal, which is usually the manufacturing or the raw material one, and then in the US we have the other sister company that's usually in charge of R&D and retail and sales. And so, what did I find along the journey? At some point it becomes very clear. You're poor because you have no money. At least not enough money to take care of your basic needs. You have no money because you have no source of income. And what is a source of income for most of us? For most of us, what is a source of income? Right. Anybody else has something else to say than jobs? Okay, so I'm glad we made that clear. Some of you might have said, like I hear some other places, my parents. Well, where does the money from your parents come from? And then other people say, oh, the government. Yeah, fine. But even if you're going to work for the government, I would like to think that you're still being paid. Where do you think that money comes from? It comes from taxes that businesses, employers, and employees are paying in the system. So where do jobs come from? Where do jobs come from? I'm waiting for an answer from you guys. Just, so we can make it a little bit more participative. Where do jobs come from? Oh, thank you. I was like, oh my God, are they sleeping? So, yes, from businesses, and most of it, most importantly, comes from small and medium-sized enterprises. I'll call them here SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. That's where usually the backbone of any middle class, of any healthy society comes from. So, if these enterprises and businesses are so important, don't you think then that we should look at the business environment, at the environment in which they get to thrive or not? I think we should. And as a matter of fact, there are a couple indexes that measure how hard or easy it is to start any business in any country in the world. One of them is a Doing Business Index ranking of the World Bank. The other one is a Fraser Institute Economic Freedom Index. By the way, you'll hear me oftentimes stumble upon my words. English is only my fourth language. If you can do as well, come and talk to me. But if I stumble, that's what it is. Sometimes, the order of the words just don't add up. So, yeah, those two indexes measure how hard or easy it is to start a business anywhere in the world. And guess what? Guess what? These indexes are showing exactly on paper and on numbers what I am living through as an entrepreneur, having her business, one in Africa and one here. What does it say? It says that it is harder to do business almost anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa than it is anywhere in Scandinavia. Sit with that for a second. And the reason why I picked the Scandinavian countries is because for even the most anti-business people in the world, they like to use Scandinavia as a haven of socialism, which, by the way, they will be the first ones to tell you, we are not a socialist economy. But go tell that to some people who still have it so hard in their head that Scandinavia are socialist economies. It is easier for anyone in Scandinavia to start a business than it is for almost anyone in sub-Saharan Africa. Only 5 countries in sub-Saharan Africa are in a better place, in an okay place. What does that mean? Because you may sit here, and that's the problem I have with indexes and such. They talk in a language which regular people don't understand. I'm going to tell you what it means. What if I compare two things? If in one country, and then you'll have to guess which country it is, if in one of the countries it takes you 25 minutes, or maybe less amount of time if you type faster than me, to apply for your LLC online, and within a few minutes get all of your paperwork with signatures from the Secretary of State of your state. 25 minutes, and no, I exaggerate, 15 minutes, and $25 probably on there to set it up. Compare that now, there's another country, we won't say the name, where it will take you at least a good year of your time. Compare that to 25 minutes, and almost a year worth of somebody's salary, compare that to $25, to legitimately register your business. Are you starting to see what we're talking about here? Are you starting to see how one dramatically offers a better climate than the other? Then I'll give you another one. Imagine, in one of the countries, you have your small mom and pop pizza place. And I know you see them all around here, because you guys love pizza, I know that. So imagine your beloved pizza place that, by the way, oftentimes is doing good things for the community. Maybe has provided you with some free pizza sometimes for some of anything you do as a community, they're helping out. And imagine now, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, business is going down. And their revenues are slashed. I'm just taking very radical circumstances here, but it does happen, unfortunately, sometimes. Revenue goes down. Overnight, something happened, revenue goes down. And in one country, you have a right to say, you know what? Business is really bad right now. We're going to try to stay afloat. We're going to have to let go of a few people, or maybe some of us are going to have to go part-time. And we're going to try to see if we can weather the storm. When things are better, we bring everybody back and we continue on. One country allows you to do that, no problem. But in another country, you have to actually pass through the government to have a right to say, you know what, we're going to have to do things differently. We're going to have to let go somebody or go part-time on some people. The government tells you if it's okay. If it's okay, you get to let go of a person or to change things without having to pay a fine. And if it's not okay by some government people who have never run a pizza place, don't know what the hell they're talking about, if it's not okay by them, well, then chaos is upon you. If you were a small mom and pop pizza place, put yourself in those shoes. Which other country would you choose to do your pizza place in? Would you try to do it in the country that asks you a year of your time, a year's salary of your money, plus gets to tell you when and if you can let go of some employees or do things with your business? Would you go and work and place your pizza place in that country? Or would you go to the other country that basically 25 minutes, 15 minutes, $25, and yeah, employment at will? Who would be willing to put their company in the country that says a year worth of your money and all that? Who here would do that compared to the other country? This, my friends, is the answer I found. I see in this room, no one raises their hand. No one. And it is what it is. That's what people are doing, or I should say not doing. Sada here knows. So many people in the diaspora here, they don't want to set business up in Senegal because of all of these things we talk about. We could. We are as capable as anybody else to start businesses, but we won't because of what I told you about. So if him, me, and someone else, and so many people who could, are saying, we're not going to start these businesses, forget it, then where do you think the jobs that these businesses would be creating would come from? They're non-existent. They don't exist. And if you don't have a business, the jobs, then guess what? People are saying, we got to go. And so right now, that's what you're seeing. Even these stories that you're hearing of people trying to come to this country from south of a border, a lot of the stories are similar. Some people will add, yeah, there's an issue with violence and everything. That's true. But economic, oftentimes, reason at the heart of all of this. Even when some folks complain about, they say, oh, well, but some of these migrants are climate migrants. Have you seen who in Vegas goes hanging out outside most of the time? You've gone to Vegas, most people in this room. Have you seen how hot it is right there? Vegas is hotter than some parts of Senegal where people are saying they can't live in. But I still see people living in Vegas. So I would like to argue that if you've got the funds, you can pretty much make anything happen. So this is what we're seeing. Basically, a lot of African countries are poor because their business climate sucks. It is not because I'm less capable than any other person. It is because I don't get to play with the same toolkit that people in this country have. That's the only difference. I could take the greatest entrepreneur in this country and put them in some of these countries, and they would be having the hardest time making anything of themselves. And to me, once I found that out, I became so excited. I went out talking to folks, and then I became depressed. Why did I become depressed? Because when I went out, started talking about these ideas around how we needed greater economic freedom, and that word, maybe for you it meant nothing until now, because from now on it's going to have to mean something to you. All we call economic freedom, when you hear people talking about the need for greater economic freedom, it's not a bunch of right-wing crazies talking to you who don't care about anybody else. No, it is simply people who are saying, we believe that everyone has the ability to make something of themselves if we level the playing field. So you want to talk about inequality? The only inequality I want to talk about and I want to see solved is that playing field. I want for that playing field to be leveled. There's no reason why you Americans sitting in America should have a right to such a great toolkit of the entrepreneur, and I don't. And then because I don't have that toolkit, I cannot achieve the level of prosperity that I can and should be achieving for my people, then you come around and you say, oh, gee, isn't it terrible? You're so poor, we're going to give you money, foreign aid, or we're going to give you shoes. And in the process, you get to think of me as a lesser than a human being. You see how twisted the whole thing is? And by the way, if you think that is just my problem, being poor somewhere in those faraway countries, and you think there's an ocean between you and us, think again. You see the rise of populism everywhere. Whether it's in Europe, in America, you see it. And oftentimes, what is it? People are voting for these far-right groups on one notion, and one notion often only, and it is, keep the immigrants out. Those are the immigrants that I talked about. They're actually the migrants. The people who are leaving their countries because we don't have a good business climate, and they're going to try to go to other countries that offer a better business climate so that they can achieve their potential. And so if you think none of this is affecting you from where you're sitting, think again. Because you've heard it. Europe, France, Marine Le Pen from Le Front National, very right-wing group. For the past 2-3 elections, presidential elections, she almost made it. And I do think it's going to happen probably, but they're going to make it. Austria, you see it all over Europe. I don't know if you're hearing what's going on in Italy right now. The whole thing is insane. And it's happening because some countries don't have the proper economic freedom for their people, so their people are leaving them, going to other places, and there, other people are now voting for right-wing groups, and the whole geopolitical system is changing right before our eyes. And it's going to have really, really strong repercussions. Some other places, some people decide to bomb themselves. Because guess what? There's nothing more dangerous than a young person, usually a young man, with no hope in life. So, you see, when I talk about the moral impact or the morality of entrepreneurship, this is where I want to take you back to. Because oftentimes, for people in this room, for us, entrepreneurship is this now glamorous thing. And I'm so glad it became glamorous, because for the longest time, people in general had a bad opinion of business. You think business is all about being greedy. I like to argue that business is one of the greatest force of social good. Because we can see that without a job, which is provided by these businesses, it can mean the difference between life and death, and in my case, it's very real. Some of these people I told you about are my friends. I have friends who actually have passed away. And it is probably not over. It will not be over until everyone, in my country at least, gets to manifest their greatest potential. So I know I have more of these deaths coming. So, entrepreneurship is the difference between life and death for so many of us. You forgot that from where you are because you have been able to take such great advantage of it that at this point, it is just something that you almost take for granted. Also, entrepreneurship, the jobs and the prosperity it allows, is also the difference between war and peace. And the last one that I would like to add here when it comes to the morality of all of this is, I don't know if we can put my first picture up, please. You see, when we started my last company, Skin is Skin, we called it the Little Lip Balm, thank you, the Little Lip Balm on a mission to fight discrimination. This was me and my team 3 years ago. We have grown since. This is in Senegal. You see this lady right here, how happy she looks, and how confident she looks. She was not always like this. She was 26 years old back then, never had a job before, never thought she would ever have a job. She thought her only role in life would be to sit around and wait for her husband. Her name is Yahara. And I always explain to everybody because that's the only chance I have for people taking me seriously. Because if I don't explain to people why I do what I do, then they think they have a crazy, obsessed person in front of them. I am obsessed, yes, you got it. But when you face what I face every day, and you understand that there's something that we can do about this, you would be so not right nor cool to not do anything about it. So Johannes, she said, I explained to them everything that I shared with you, what I found, the fact that I was, just like her at some point in my life, and I didn't understand why we were so poor, why the world treated us like this. And I explained what I found out, and I talked about everything. I talked about the solution forward and how we can do something about it. And then she started crying. I said, why are you crying? She said, I am crying because I have to confess that up till now, because every time I open a magazine, I see me, the little black girl with the black skin, being represented as a pathetic human being who needs somebody else's help. They bring us shoes, they bring us water, they do all of these things, and whether it's a magazine I'm reading, or a movie I'm looking at, or some billboards that I'm seeing, and I have to come to think that maybe us Africans, are maybe inferior. When she said that, my whole being just sank. And then she said, but that is not why I'm crying. And I said, but why are you crying? She said, because now I know that it is not true. And when she said that, I saw her whole body changing. Her shoulders finally, for the first time since I've known her, just relaxed. Something about her just changed. And I think that what I was seeing was what you see when someone has finally become free up here. Because now you know you are not the problem. Therefore, you can do something also. She understood what Professor Yunus, Mohammed Yunus, Nobel Prize, laureate in peace, said, poor people are bonsai people. The seed that produces the bonsai is the same seed that produces the tallest, most beautiful tree in the forest or in the jungle. It is the same seed. But of course, if you're going to take a seed and put it in a tiny-ass pot, of course, it can only grow to be this tall. But if you put it into the right soil, it has the right nutrients, enough water, the proper exposure, like sun exposure, everything, of course, this is going to grow to be the most beautiful plant you've ever seen. And this is what I have found out. This has been the answer to my question of why are some countries poor and others are rich. It was truly liberating, the same way she got liberated. So for me, entrepreneurship and why it's such a moral force is because, yes, it can be not only the difference between life and death, as we said, the difference between war and peace, but also the phenomenon that also can provide her, me, anybody here with what we call dignity. And to me, that is one of the most important things that you can give a human being. I think even homeless people, it doesn't matter how low you can be in your life. If you don't feel a sense of dignity, you pretty much have lost everything. So, next time you hear people bashing business, I want you to be a little bit more sophisticated. I think that what goes on out there when people bash business, what they usually bash is what we call crony business. Let me tell you what crony business means in my field. And then maybe we can just put the next one forward. Let me tell you what crony business means in my field. You know, we manufacture everything we do, well done, handmade and all that. So would you know that right now, and I have another line where we're doing also some soaps, so handmade soaps. I don't know anybody here. Has anybody here ever tried to make soap on your own? So you know then that there is something that we call the saponification process that has to happen, right? So you put some fats, usually the butters and the oils, and you mix it with some acid. In this case, it's the So there's some hydroxide to put in there, and the saponification process happens. When it happens, all the acid goes away if you had measured things properly. It all goes away, and then you're left with soap, and there's a byproduct of it that normally becomes glycerin. So in the normal industry, in the big industry, what they do is they take glycerin out, and they go resell it because it's valuable. It's the thing that really helps moisturize your skin. In our handmade soaps, we usually reintegrate the glycerin in, which means you have a much better bar of soap, much richer. So around the country, you have countless women, especially single moms, who are supplementing their income with soap-making business in their garages or in their basement. And they're doing something that our grandmothers have done for centuries, and none of us has died from it. They make great soaps. Well, guess what? Companies like Unilever, Procter & Gamble are like, gee, these people are eating into our business. All of these women together, when you take them together, they're really putting a dent into our sales of Dove soap and all of that stuff. Guess what they do? They say, I can't compete against little Magatte because the product she's making, people seem to like it because she's all organic and all of that stuff. So instead of trying to compete with me at that level, their first instinct is going to be, I am Procter & Gamble, I am Unilever, I have power. Okay. I am going to go to DC. I am going to go see my congressman and all of these other legislators. And what do they do there with them? We call them the lobbyists. They go and they say, I really think it should be mandatory for anybody wanting to sell soap to make sure that their soaps are going through a series of tests, and that's going to be so expensive that actually most of these mom and pop, most of these ladies are not going to be able to make the soap anymore, right? Because it's so expensive. So you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get your soap tested. And by the way, we know it's still very safe. Again, our grandmothers have been doing it forever, and they're probably we're making a better soap than these big guys. So they go to their congressman and they say, this is what I need to pass. And some deals happen behind the scene. All of a sudden, me and thousands of other women, we wake up to the news. Oh, from now on, you guys, you're going to have your soaps tested, and that test you have to go through these different processes, and it's going to cost you $100,000. I'm not even giving you the exact numbers here, but I'm doing this so you see the ridiculousness of the situation. Guess what? So many of us are going to stop making soap. So Unilever and such continue selling you their soap without making any improvement to it. They effectively eliminated me through the law that they had passed. That, my friend, is crony business. So oftentimes when people complain about business, that's what you're thinking about. But that is not capitalism, and that is not business. It is crony something. I don't even want to call it crony business or crony capitalism. Oftentimes that's what people think when they think of business and when they think of capitalism. And therefore, they say, we reject capitalism, we reject business. But you should truly say, we reject crony. And in that fight, I am your ally. I hate crony with everything that I've got because it is not fair. That is not right. That is not how things get better. So we organized. We created a council, a guild. So all of us, these small and medium-sized enterprise making, skincare products, we created our own force to go and fight them in DC. And that's the only reason why so many women today still who have these small businesses making skincare products that are all organic, natural, because a lot of these women started their businesses because at some point they had cancer, and they discovered they had cancer because of all of these chemicals in these, skincare products, and they said, we want something better, and they created something better, and the customer says, I want what you created, but these big guys, instead of saying, hey, thank you for raising the bar, we're gonna beat you at your own game, we're gonna be better than you. We're going to get extra organic or extra this. We're just going to be better than you. We're going to fight at that level. No, I go to mommy and daddy, and I said, Mom, Dad, can you make sure she gets out of the playground? That's what they do. And that all of us should fight. So next time you argue business, I want you to be very, very subtle and sophisticated. Because the last thing I need, any one of us in this room needs, is for us to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because if we only sit there and say, gee, it's terrible, we need to put all of this legislation, and you start putting all of these, barriers to entry, you are going to block a lot of little fish that actually needed to get in. Because if you don't have me right now, and countless women like me, and usually there are a lot of women in the industry, skincare, the organic one at least, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with the status quo. Who is going to challenge right now what's going on? Who? No one. And that's how you end up with no innovation. None. None. So, and the reason why, so I gave you these examples, but I'm going to go back to how all of this ties up with my country. One thing worries me these days. It is the fact that I'm hearing that socialism is having a revival on US campuses. For the longest time, I thought you guys were my allies on my fight for a better life back home. And now, in the name of only God knows what, it is starting, the trends are starting to go in a bizarre place. So this is why I take my time to come here and talk about this and see if we can make a case. And see if we can remove politics out of this and if we can just keep our eyes on the ball. Because the more anyone in this room is going to try to promote socialism, the more effectively you will be anti-business. And the more anti-business and the good business, when I'm talking about the fact where it's a level playing field, the little people should have a right to get in. You should not have to have $1 billion to be able to start a business, or to have a father who has $1 billion. You should not know the president of a country to be able to start a business and run your business. You should be able to be Jane Doe from the middle of nowhere, knows no one, came up in poverty, but boy, you've got this awesome idea for a product or a service that people actually want. You should be able to bring your idea to life in the cheapest way possible, easiest way possible, so it gets to market in the fastest way possible. If we lose that ability, I'm very worried about what's going to happen. And so I just want us to keep that in mind. Because what actually got my continent on this mess right now is because in the late 1950s, early 1960s, when most of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa got their independence from their colonizers, guess what was en vogue? Socialist ideas. All the presidents of these newly free countries were socialist. They adopted socialist policies that are usually anti-business. They usually make it harder to do business. And look at what we have to show for today. So for me, I think we should be clear. I know exactly what you mean when some of you say, tired, we're tired. We want to see more socialism. We think it might be the answer. I think I know exactly what you mean. I think some of you are tired walking in the streets and seeing homeless people and all the things that, we put a name on it called inequality. I get it. But we really have to be smart about what caused this situation in the first place, and most importantly, how do we come out of it? And be very careful throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Real lives depend on it. You might make the mistake today and still not feel anything 20 years from now. But let me tell you, if we go down one path, 2 generations from now, you will see your children suffer from the consequences of some of these pushes that we're making right now. So I think that when you see me, you can tell that I could care less about politics. I sincerely could care less about politics. I despise politics and I despise politicians. I said it to their face when I'm on panels everywhere. I don't have time for politicians. But we have real issues, and so we should really, really stay close to the human being. We should stay close to people. Don't get lost in politics. And you have brilliant minds, people in this room. You gotta use it. And you gotta be more sophisticated than just, I'm for this big thing or against this big thing. It's more subtle than that. Can you engage your critical thinking abilities? Can you? Or do you just want to be taken for a ride by the talking heads on CNN or Fox? You see, I take them both, because I sincerely am tired of the two sides. I think it's passé. It's old. So the plea I'm making here, though, I'm making it on the behalf of my people. We will solve our problems. Make no mistake about that. But I'm here to just make sure that you don't slow us down on that process while we're pushing, you're pulling back. So I don't even need you to buy Tom's shoes. I just need you at this point to say, you know what? It's not fair that in Africa, people don't have the same playing level field as we have here. That's all. So with that, maybe we can move on to questions. Thank you, guys.
There are microphones up here. If you have questions, go to the microphone.
And if you're too lazy to get up, just speak out loud. I understand, I've been there before.
What's the story on Tom's shoes?
Okay. You know, by now, I'm kind of hated by Christian missionaries. I'm just kidding. I'm going to be talking to them in June, hopefully. So the story of Tom's shoes. Imagine, you know, where we make our lip balms here, it's in a town called Magatte. You know la chaussure de Ngai, the shoes that we have, you know that place? Yeah. So Magatte, it's where we're based in Senegal. It's an hour and a half north of Dakar, the capital city. And there, it happens to be that is the center of shoemakers in all of Senegal. So in Magatte, we have 200-something shoemaking family businesses. That's what I told you about. These guys have classes right now to go to. 200-something family-owned businesses, and all they make is shoes. It's this really cool shoe. And each one of these businesses hires close to 15 people. Start doing the math. Each one of these people hired at least 50 family members, in a very direct and indirect way, might rely on that income. Who's doing the math right now? Where are you at? What number are you seeing? 232 multiplied by 15 people, multiplied by 50 people. Can you give me that number? Someone, somewhere, somehow. Can you give me that number? Yes, sir.
174,000.
Okay. And it's funny, because that town we're only 25,000 people, but it's because we have money wiring systems. Because you can be here and send money to your family back maybe in San Francisco. So more directly, it's 2,000 something, but that many people benefit from this. Now, you're home, you're there, 2,000 something people who have a job, and they're making shoes. All of a sudden, the Tom Shoes truck shows up, full of free shoes. Are you starting now to see what happens to the people who are in there making shoes? What happens to them?
Lose their jobs.
Thank you. The business have to close because who can compete against free, right? So that's the story of Tom Shoes. Your good intention, you said, I'm going to go help a poor child somewhere. I get it. I know. I want to help too. But then what have you done in this situation? What's the morality of sending 2,000-something employees to the unemployment ranks when their children actually now are going to have to go and make the line of those needing shoes bigger because mom and dad can't buy shoes anymore because they lost their source of income to buy shoes, buy food, buy medicine, take care of a family in dignity. You start to see now the problem with Tom Shoes. And now push that further. The Tom Shoes model has worked so well for Tom Shoes. They have made lots of profit, and I don't blame them for that. You know, look, this is another thing that I wanted to address. People having an issue with businesses making profits. If you're going to go work for someone, do you want to take money home? Yes or no? The one who doesn't want to take money home, raise your hand. Because I want you to come work for me. If you don't want to take money home, you don't want to be paid? Okay, there we go. We got it, right? So just like when you're working, you want to be paid. And usually, ideally, the more you get paid, the happier you are. Actually, it's never a bad thing. Listen, guys, if we're running anything in life, if you're running a business and if a business doesn't make money, doesn't make profit, how do you think you're going to stay in business? How do you think you're going to maintain those paychecks that you're giving to your employees? How do you think then they're going to be able to pay for their mortgages, for their children's school, everything? How do you think it's going to happen? We're just going to print more money? Fake money? So Tom Shoes is making plenty of profits, thank you very much, because they came up with a clever marketing program. Buy one, give one. So all of us in this room, we want to show that we care. Voila, I'm going to buy a pair of shoes. And by the way, the pair of shoes that you guys buy, they're expensive. Do you really think they give us that pair of shoes? Do you know that in Senegal, at least, the kids, when they see that pair of shoes from Tom's, they're like, that thing is crap. Why? Because 2 weeks later, there is a hole that comes out right here for some reason, on the right toe, big toe. They probably send them, like, I don't know, a $2 or $5 version shoe. So you destroyed a part of my local economy. And oftentimes we can't talk about it because when I talk about it, you say, oh, how dare you? I was just trying to help. Really? So what are we? What are we? Your anthropological wet dreams? Are you kidding me? No, I'm going to hold you accountable for this. So if you really care, because guess what? Criticize by creating. I'm not here just to say, bad, bad, bad. No, you got to give people alternatives and solutions. There's a company in Chicago that does it very well. It's called Tiny Blue Dot. They make amazing, shirts and, jackets. And so this woman said, I really, really want to give back. And because we're in jacket, it needs to be something in the apparel, in apparel, because, you keep your marketing straight. So she said, there's this one place in Kenya that I want to support the kids, but I can tell that the Tom Shoes model is bad, so I don't want to do that. So what she came up with, talking to a few people who, and they came up with this idea, and the idea was, my goal is to give free uniforms to kids going to school in Kenya. Because if you don't have this uniform, you can't go to the school, and the uniforms are expensive. So what she does is she takes a proceed of every jacket she sells in the US, she takes 10% away. If she sold, $1,000, and she'll put $100 aside and put it in a fund. And then that fund gets to be, $50,000, $100,000. So she'll call the local uniform manufacturer in Kenya, in that area where the school is, and say, hey, I have an order, a $50,000 order for you to create these uniforms, and then she's going to take them and give them to these kids. See how different that is, right? You're following me here. You destroyed nothing. If anything, you're actually helping create more jobs. Ideally, we want to get to the place where no child needs for anybody else to give them something for free because mom and dad are able to provide for it, which I'm sure mom and dad prefer to be the ones providing for their children. But until that happens, this is a great way to do it. But so few are doing this right now. The Tom Shoes model became so successful, but guess what now? They don't just dump shoes on me anymore. I am having free tampons. I'm having free soaps. I'm having free socks. Everything is being shipped over to us for free. So all of these businesses that should be and could be the ones doing it, what's happening to them? They're closing. Oh my God. So long story short, to explain everything that's wrong with Tom Shoes. It could be solved. So that's why we keep talking. Next question. Yes, sir.
If your government notices like the extreme export of people leaving to go find jobs in other countries, why would they continue to make it so difficult to start a business?
Do you think your politicians care about you? Answer.
I mean, I like to think at some point maybe, but...
But do you think...
No, on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
Not, yeah.
Okay. Especially if I tell you this. Not already on their own, you're wondering if they care, right? And you should wonder. But what if on top of that I tell you, Because we have gotten ourselves in this mess. Remember what I told you, in the late 1950s, my country got its independence April 4th, 1960. That's when we technically became free. Very recent, huh? Although I was not born yet. But we had the socialist government that were anti-business. Anti-business means, well, I guess we're not going to see a lot of businesses, no lot of jobs, a lot of stuff going with it, so poverty is around. So the rest of the world is going to be like, gee, isn't that terrible? Especially when National Geographic puts an image up there of the little kid from Ethiopia, you know, about to die. Remember, I don't know if you've seen that picture, but with a vulture waiting, and we're thinking that probably in a few seconds the vulture is going to run on that child because that kid is going to die, and the vulture is going to eat him. The world sees things like this, so us nice people in this room, we're like, for the love of God, let's give money. So foreign aid is pouring in. By now, trillions of dollars have gone in. Now, guess what? You're a president of these countries. Do you know how often we intercept planes, big planes, with, let's see, one of those planes had a Bentley in it. It had, I don't know how many Maseratis in it, and so on and so forth. I think at least 10 cars like that in that thing. And then when they marry their daughter, I won't say which countries, they fly some of the best champagnes, you know, to the country, and all of their friends from around the world in big private jets. And then they buy chateaus in the south of France. And then they also have Swiss bank accounts all over the place. Do you really think you would want that person would want that to end? Heck to a no. So on one end, the leader of this country is boom, 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 and everywhere I can, and even hiding under my bed. On the other end, the country is giving this money, like, oh, gee, yeah, we see what they're doing with this money, but, you know, oh, actually, but we get to tell them what to do, because we're the hands feeding them. So we get to tell them what to do. So there's a form of neocolonialism that's out there, and so think about it now. You have this beautiful system. The poor country, you have the donor country, and you have all of these poor citizens over here. As long as they stay poor, everything keeps going. The minute they're no longer poor, the whole thing collapses. Now think and tell me. You say, why? Why? If you want to know more about this, go on Netflix tonight and watch Poverty, Inc., because it's really that. It's a big industry. Poverty, Inc. Any other question? Yes, ma'am.
So do you just specialize in just like lip balm and like soap and stuff, or like what do you specialize?
The last one, we right now have the lip balms, and we started rolling them out at the Whole Foods Market and also at natural food stores. And next, we're coming up with a hand balm. And yes, so you, I think, will enjoy it. And then I also have another brand called Tiosan. That one is coming back, and it's going to be a face line only for nighttime. So yeah. So that's another thing, guys. The lip balm, and thanks for reminding me to talk about this. Talking again about the good that business can do. You know, right now in the world of lip balm, you have chapstick. Chapstick. I hope no one buys chapstick in this room. But anyway, if you do, I'll forgive you. You didn't know. From here on, you'll know. So there's chapstick over there, nothing special. And then you have another one, something bees, and I'm personally not for something bees because I believe in vegan cosmetics. When you know what happens, I mean, you know, I just don't like this idea of taking the stuff from the bees. So, and plus, you know, beeswax is really terrible texture on the lips, I find. So our lip balm is 100% vegan. So we like to say that our lip balm is right now the hardest working lip balm in the world. And when we say that, people laugh. But then when I explain, then they're like, you know what? Now to come to think of it, I think you're right. Why? Why is it the hardest working little lip balm in the industry right now? It does it in 3 ways. Way number one, this little guy. First things first, we take great care of your lips. We have things like, not only the shea butter that everybody knows about, but we have things like the Baobab oil. Have you heard of baobab? It's becoming a superfood in this country. People are finally understanding what it is all about. And we also have things like the hibiscus oil. I can tell you that no other lip balm has any of these things. And hibiscus is a natural lip plumper. When you try to drink hibiscus tea, it's a flower. Next time you try that, put the little pieces on a cup after you have steeped it in your water. And look at it. It almost looks like gelish. That's what it does also with your lips. Really helps with beautiful looking, luscious lips. So we do that. We make sure we take good care of you, because without that, it doesn't matter. I don't want your pity. So I'm going to give you a good product, and then we can really deal with each other. So number one, second way in which this one guy works so hard is because it provides, it's in the way it's made. It's entirely made back home in Senegal. I'm sure you're happy to hear that. So it's entirely made back home in Senegal. What does it mean? It means that the people you saw over there, today everybody's so happy saying, oh, we're helping Africa. We're buying from these women co-ops, the women's farmers. And don't take me wrong. It was a wonderful first step. But I would like to think that as African women back home, we can do more than just collecting the shea nut. We can actually get inside the lab, get going with chemistry, and be very fancy and just make it work. So I wanted to make sure we can provide these women with stable jobs, with stable income, because not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. But people will try to do that if that's all that's left. So we have brought something else, and I like to think that we broke the thatch roof ceiling. That's the second way we should do it, giving great jobs, providing independence to people back home. And the last way in which we work so hard is, you see it up there, 50% of our profits go to organizations working to end bias in our schools and in our communities. Tell me which other lip balm does all of this. And I would like to challenge everybody, anyone who's going to want to be out there and be an entrepreneur. I really would like to challenge you to think about all three parameters. You should no longer be happy just because your product is the best product in itself. It should be the best product. But in my book, it's nothing yet. It's just the first step. Without being the best product, you should not go to market. Best product, but also look at what is it doing? How is it being part of greater prosperity in where you are? Usually by being able to provide a job, you're able to do that. But also think about a social issue that a brand can fix. You see, at this point, I have decided that we don't need one more law to stop discrimination. On paper, the law is beautiful. Beautiful. You're not allowed to discriminate against me under any circumstances. It is very clear. And the consequences are big. But yet, people still discriminate. So what I say is culture has not caught up. As a culture, we have not caught up. And you know what is the best thing to fight culture? Brands are a powerful tool to fight culture. Powerful. And people forget that. So I did not want to do this as a nonprofit. I wanted to do it as a brand because of the power that brands have to affect culture, for good or for bad. And here we're trying to do it for good. So as you go out there, challenge yourself. We are in 2019. Business should be about more than just even having a good product. Next question. Yes, sir.
So you say that there are issues in Senegal. How do you suggest that we work to improve those?
I think the way especially for people in this room, imagine if you were a doctor, if I'm your patient, I come to you, and really what's wrong with me is that in my heart, right, there's an issue with my heart, and then you are only focusing on my brain. You convince the issue is my brain. How much do you think, what are the chances you think of finding the right treatment for me? Very low. We might get to it because luck happens, right? But I'm not going to rely on luck for this. But this is what it is. Awareness. I know the word is washed off. You've heard it so many times that it means everything and nothing. But awareness building, if only you could help me spread the proper diagnosis as to why most of sub-Saharan Africa is in an economic state of poverty right now, you help me win. Because you know what starts to happen? When people are told about a problem, and when they think they have identified the reason to that problem, guess what people do? They go and they fight that perceived cause of a problem with everything that they have, as they should. As if somebody comes and says, the problem is they don't have shoes, so we're going to give them shoes, you do it. They don't have clean water, we're going to give them clean water, then you start giving millions of dollars to charity aid. You just will act on what you have perceived to be the problem. So my biggest problem right now is the fact that there is a misdiagnosis as to why sub-Saharan Africa is usually, most of these countries are poor. It is misdiagnosed. If you can help me get the diagnosis straight into people's minds, then start watching all types of people coming with all types of answers to this problem. Some of the solutions I would probably not even have thought about. That's what we call tapping into the wisdom of the crowd. But the crowd cannot help you if the crowd is didn't get the diagnosis right. So number one, as you go out there, start talking with your friends. You don't have to take anything I said for granted. As a matter of fact, I would like for you to go out there and just push all types of theories that don't fit in with each other, because that's what I had to do to come to where I am today with my ideas. So number one, awareness building. For those of you who are, I get it, she's right, then you can come and help me. If you're in the tech world, anything we can do to push for e-government and e-governance. So it's this idea that we would then get proper transparency as well as accountability. So if there is a software out there that some people are working on that could be applied at the government level, city level maybe, where you get to see money in, money out, things like that could be helpful because it helps with greater transparency. Greater transparency means people can't really hide behind, I guess, opacity. Next, we're going to go really crazy radical because some of us feel like we really, again, all jokes aside, when I talk to you, I just talk of my friends first. Those who are no longer here, I think I owe them to continue fighting. And for those who are not in danger yet, I want to make sure that they never, get themselves into dangerous situation. So if some of us are just like piecemeal legislation, because we're talking about these reforms that need to happen, if piecemeal legislation is going to be too long and too hard to get done, then some of us are thinking about this radical idea of creating startup cities. What is a startup city? In a way, that's more or less what happens with a place like Dubai. Dubai, 110 acres of land. Today, you all know it to be one of the financial, international centers of the world, but it was not always like that. At some point, that 110 acres was just sand, nothing valuable on it. What did Dubai say? They're like, wait a second. This piece of land is under Sharia law. Then they're saying, Sharia law doesn't look like it's very good for business, at least international business where it's all done and understood. So they said, on this 110 acres of land, we're going to bring a different type of business law, and we're going to do British common law on it. And technically, that's what created Dubai. And before Dubai, we had Hong Kong, Singapore, all of these places that are just like, wow, right now, this one piece of land is subject to a bad set of laws. And so we're going to change the set of laws on this piece of land and watch magic happen. So the best way to think about it is think about a piece of land as your computer, and think about the law that this piece of land is subjected to. Think about this law as your operating software. And depending on which operating software you operate, you can have very different outcomes. So that is what some people are working on. One of them is here, my husband Michael, one of the people who have been really trying to make these things work. They have something that now is going on in Honduras. And so we're trying to make sure that similar things start to happen around the world, where instead of having to take boats to escape their bad governments, my people, all they will have to do is to drive a little or to walk a little to this new city in their own country that is saying, we're going to apply a different set of laws to businesses in this part of our country. That's pretty radical, but it is happening. And we think as it happens, and more people get to escape their own bad laws in their own countries, then all of a sudden what's going to start to happen, you're going to start to see cities competing for citizens in a given country. Now, we're going to put the burden back on our so-called leaders to put the right infrastructure in place so that they can earn our presence. If you have no way of exit, you are not free. A valid exit is only an exit that's reasonably easy to go for. If the exit demands your life, it is not an exit. That's the only exit our people have right now. It's not an exit, remember. So, if you have no exit, you have no freedom. And in the end, it's all about freedom. I think we're out of time now, right?
Yes, that's,
Thank you.
Thank you, Magatte. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming. And this is for you and Michael. Thank you for today.